broadcasting live out of a basement in Appleton, Wisconsin. You're tuned into Fox Cities Core on WCZR Code Zero Radio. We're the show that gives you an opportunity to call in and be a part of the show. Our call-in line is 920-358-0795. Core. My next guest last appeared at Mile of Music 7 in 2019. Since that time, frontman Mac Hanson has gone through big changes, notably getting married and having a son. He's back in town this weekend for Mile 11. I'd like to welcome Mac Hanson to Fox Cities Core on Code Zero Radio. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me, Annie.
Thanks for coming. And we were talking, you're a morning person.
Yeah, it's funny. Me and my drummer Joey were walking around grabbing coffee, and you and I had this whole conversation about when to do this interview. And you're like, "Is 10 o'clock early?" I'm like, "Homie, that's almost halfway through the day."
You actually turned it around and you said, "What's early to you?"
Yeah, I'm like, because and you know what occurred to me. So Joey and I we're on the road and we're in the middle of, God damn it, probably Cheyenne, Wyoming, right? Or very near Green River, right? Because I played CCR on the way into the town to grab middle of nowhere Thai. And we pull into this joint, former Mexican spot, turns Thai. There's an old homie, God love him. And he asked, "Does that pay your bills?" when we said we were musicians. And Joey is just going, "Man, what other profession is it okay for people to go, does that pay your bills?" Imagine someone says they're an accountant and you go, "Does that pay the bills?" But I was thinking about it this morning as we're talking about it being early, like noon is early to musicians, I guess. No wonder they're asking us if we can pay our bills. These guys are sleeping till 4. Of course we've built this misconception. So all of that said, Joe and I have been up since 7, and God damn it, I'm already tired.
Was your show last night rained out?
It was rained out. It was a bummer. But then there was this kind of like, there's an interesting thing when you cancel plans in your 30s, like, I was pumped to play, but I'm also pumped to not do anything. There's that little satisfied part of yourself. It's like, this is good. This is a little good.
So what did you end up doing then with your extra free time?
We walked down the way, got together with John Tyler Wiley, who we played on the Rock Boat with a couple years ago. Caught up, got stuck in a bar conversation. Not stuck, but some bar conversations are gentler than others. You know what I mean?
Do you get worried about that, talking in a bar when the voices kind of start, especially when you're doing a string of shows like you are this week?
It's fun. I mean, I was thinking about it as I was talking with these two homies. That's especially for people who are vocalists who rely on height and breadth in the vocal cords. You really need to be careful about how much you talk, because that, before all else, is the thing that will murder your cords. I don't think that people generally refer to them just as the chords, but I'm trying to create new vernacular. You know what I mean?
Well, this is your first time back since Mile 7, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
When you're coming back into Appleton now, did you recognize a lot of stuff from when you were here last time, or did it change quite a bit?
Oh yeah, it was immediately familiar. It was kind of seared. We were treated so well by you guys in 2019, and it was definitely seared into our minds. It was definitely seared into mine. I think at the time 2019 was really like the first year for me as a touring musician and really someone taking it seriously. And we were received so warmly and were given so many great stages and shows. And yeah, so it was very, very much seared into our minds. And Joey and I, because Joey was in that formation of the band, we clocked the thing of like, we're different people, you know. It's really interesting in between then and now, 2019 to 2024. That, yikes, 5 years. A lot has happened, not just to the world, which we're all broadly aware of, you know. God, a lot has happened, but a lot happens in human life, you know. A lot of change, a lot of interpersonal change. I mean, to your point on the introduction, like, I'm a different person. Joey is a different person than we were the last time we were here. We're different performers. We're seasoned, saltier. And in a weird way, transparently, I think we were perhaps not as aware of how lucky we were in 2019 to be received so well. There might have been that haughtiness of a band that felt hot and felt like we were cranking, and now, with plenty of years and bad shows and, you know, good shows in between, you can recognize the value of a great place and people here, you, them, you know, who really appreciate live music and songwriters. And you know what I'm saying? It's actually genuinely quite rare. And so coming in very appreciative and kind of pumped to give it one more go, you know?
Well, last time you were here for Mile, you did a show down at Jones Park, I believe,
Mhm.
which was a huge show. I still hear people talking to me about the energy that you're giving out during that.
Yeah.
You're playing Jones Park again tonight.
We are. Interestingly, I mean, Ian, the booker, great dude. Ian, Jess, shout out. We might also be playing. We might also be playing at Courtyard today at like noon. So, if you guys, you friendly listeners out there, if you're wanting some rock and roll and you're feeling like getting dripping wet because it's quite humid out there and I am really sweaty, I will drip on you. If you're feeling like it, I think we're playing the Hilton Courtyard at like 1:40. Not an official announcement. Just kidding. It is. Ian told me.
Oh, and your energy topped with, normally you've got a jacket on.
Oh, yeah.
Going full out again today in the humidity.
You know what? Back in those days, those early days, and the majority of my professional career as a musician, I have been a suit wearing man. You know, I believe that you should put the best foot forward, present well,
show up for work dressed up.
show up for work. You know, I'm going to work. I better be dressed to the nines. I have since converted. I've lost 80 pounds since then, and I now wear tank tops. That's mostly because I am so sweaty. It's concerning. If it weren't for the fact that it happened so regularly, I would think I had a health condition. You know what I mean? Like, there's some glandular issue, because otherwise there's no explanation, you know. I am just dripping with sweat all the time. It's remarkable.
Let's talk a little bit about how you got into music.
Yeah.
What was your early inspiration, and what made you decide to actually start pursuing songwriting?
Yeah. Well, early inspirations. It's fun. The first record I bought was Train Kept a Rollin' by Aerosmith. And some people feel mixed feelings about Aerosmith. And in fact, the last interview I did was with a sweet guy named Gannon out of the Quad Cities. And he said he doesn't like Aerosmith. And here's the deal. I get it. You can not like Aerosmith, but you can't say they're bad. And they are basically one of 3 bands that was around in the 70s and is still cooking. That's longevity. So Aerosmith was probably the first record. The stuff growing up.
Wait, can I ask which record it was? Was it around Janie's Got a Gun, or was it?
Oh, the first one. Well, the first one that I bought was That Train Kept Rolling. The first, the introduction was the Big One's Greatest Hits record, and that would have been, late 90s, early aughts, I guess. And, you're watching Mrs. Doubtfire, you're a kid, and Dude Looks Like a Lady comes on, and you go, this rips. It's such a funny introduction, but lots of Paul Simon, lots of Motown, lots of Aretha, lots of soul in general, and Queen plays a very special place in my heart. And then as the years go on, a lot more classic rock, a lot more CCR. I didn't really pursue music didn't treat it seriously until 2018, probably. Maybe I might have recorded the first EP late 2017.
Well, you did a single called Hey Hey, right?
Yeah. That was on the first EP, which, if I'm correct, came out in 2018. And it was a long path. I had spent and have spent the majority of my time working in film as an editor and then director. And I had kind of avoided music, knowing that it was something that I liked and that I passively was very familiar with and connected with, being a musician, being around musicians, spoke the same language. But I didn't actually learn how to play guitar until 2017, maybe. My buddy Max Helmrich of Wildorado now, I believe he's played Mile a couple of times. He and my other friend Clint Ratliff, who's a phenomenal guitarist out in Texas, taught me how to play guitar when they were crashing to my place. What is the long story short is, I was you want the actual story as to when, I'm going to do music?
Yeah, I mean, so you're doing a lot of film, and really the two, music and film, are pretty tied to each other.
Yeah, they're definitely these creative fields that play together, but I'd avoided music up until 2017. A gal friend of mine that I was seeing at the time said, it's interesting that you're an editor, or that you're saying you want to work in film. Literally everyone you know is a musician, and the only thing you do with your free time is play music. And then I went out to Joshua Tree, did mushrooms, saw the facade crack, in my identity, and realized that was something that I really wanted to do and that I was afraid of. Made the first record, and the rest is history, I guess. Yeah, I took a very long walk to get there.
Did it feel good to actually release that first EP? And I mean, you learned guitar a year before you put that out, which I find to be a very short learning curve to actually putting something out.
Yeah, I probably let's say I learned how to play 2 years before. Probably. That math doesn't math. I'm not a reliable memory man. But it was a quick turnaround. It was also it was a long time coming. I'd played piano, classic. You've really only got 2 routes into playing an instrument. Either a girl breaks your heart, someone breaks your heart, and you then have to express it or try and figure a way to get them. Or, I mean, what is option 2? Is there an option 2? I don't know.
Or else you're
just a maniacal egomaniac who needs external validation. So the majority of mankind, it was a quick turnaround. Some of those songs had kind of been percolating for a while, and before I knew how to play is not necessarily that I wasn't playing. You know what I mean? There's a time before learning your instrument and knowing what you're doing where you're kind of like bang, 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 you're trying to figure something out, and you kind of find some shapes, and the rest is history.
Your weapon of choice seems to be the Gibson SG.
Yeah, it definitely has been in the past.
It's changed.
It's changed. This run is actually the first time I'm running with a Telecaster. It was a wonderful Japanese Tele, stolen from my friend Andrew Martin, who's currently somewhere in the U.S. with another buddy, Barnes Courtney, strumming away, slapping them strings.
Was it the cleaner tones of that Strat that kind of sent you towards it?
I'd been running in Gibson humbuckers for a long time, and have tended to be in a 4-piece with a lead guitarist who's running a cleaner, brighter tone. And as I've developed, not saying I'm very good, but as I've developed as a guitarist, I've been more and more attracted to that slightly cleaner tone. Pardon. Because it just cuts a little bit more and it's a little more breadth. The Tele that I have has a hummy and a single coil on it, so there's a lot of breadth in how that thing plays. And it's been really fun. And this run is the first time doing a 3-piece, which is also just such a different outfit, different energy, big time.
Does that put more pressure on you being the one?
I was very apprehensive, in all fairness. Because you, as a songwriter, the guitarist, the rhythm player, always having a lead player, you rely a lot on them to keep the shape. And this is really a big shout out to Logan Bodian, who has been largely my lead guitarist. And he's a monster and a machine and really wonderful. Currently playing bass with Pele Royale. And I think he's going to be popping in for a couple shows. But it was very strange to consider flying without a lead guitarist, just because it's a different weight to lift. And then getting into these shows, you realize it's actually exciting. And there's a really cool thing that happens when you just have those 3 guys and these very essential parts. Not only am I pushed to be a better player, which is good because you only get better when you have to, really. You have to respond to necessity. But when you have just those essential parts, the shows become more about listening to each other. And every show thus far has had individual brand new moments, stops that weren't there in the last show. Little musical moments, the solos, because I don't know how to solo, are always different. And very, very loose. Hitting some real jazz notes sometimes. But yeah, it was very scary at first. And then once I realized I didn't have another choice, I got excited,
So you wrote your first song at the age of 14.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure it was a horrible song.
So that's not one that made it to the current discography.
Yeah, I'm gonna go find some little mini DV tapes and see if I can, find the OG. Yeah, didn't make it into the first. I remember who's the gal? What was her name? I don't know.
So it goes back to it was about a
Oh, it was
girl.
about a girl for sure. I was, still am, a little chubby boy, and some gal that I just wanted to be loved by didn't love me, broke my heart. I didn't actually get my heart broken. There was nothing there, but it did compel me to sit down at the piano. And my dad, those of you who do play know what I'm talking about. It's a laminated single page that has every chord with little red dots on the notes. Here's all the majors, here's all the minors, the sevenths, whatever. And that was the blueprint to starting to play. There, I remember the line. It's this piano line, and "Hop right in my loving arms, hop right in my loving arms." I'm 14. What are you talking about, you child? But that was the line. That was the line. I always imagined my arms quite loving, I guess.
Well, your style ended up transforming into a bluesy,
Yeah.
soulful voice. You're from Oklahoma originally. How did you find your style as far as getting that bluesy rock? You're listening to Aerosmith, which there's some bluesy
Yeah,
rock in some of that.
Aerosmith is just that first record. I still love a bombastic riff, but I don't know. I think it just came pretty naturally. Playing guitar, the timbre of my voice has always been on the rougher side, Not that I don't have a soft croon when I need to, but I don't know. I think that's just the thing that God put in the chords. I guess there's the chords again. If you're tuning in, you can now just call your vocal cords the chords. Okay.
So you're warming the chords, and you put out a lot of EPs and singles. Still not a full length at this point.
Yeah,
And do you feel that's a sign of the times with just how music is consumed nowadays?
It definitely is. Everything is a lot more fleeting, and I think for me at the time, that was wanting to be iterative and wanting to move quickly and produce something every year, and then COVID, we all know. But I also, a full length LP has not happened yet. I think my method forward is just going to be releasing really regularly, and that all contributing to a larger image eventually. You know what I mean? Like maybe every one of these releases is a part of the full LP, but not doing it in a single shaklunk, because in my mind, at least, everything is about an artist's progression. And I think after seeing a handful of friends either do the 3-month turnaround, records out, which I love, or the 5 years perseverating, remixing, remastering 7 times, re-recording. I think there's a tendency, we're caught in this weird place where you're either meant to be really precious with your music, or this is just my opinion, but you're either really precious or you're not at all. And I'm not particularly concerned with putting out some document that cements this is a chapter of my life, because we're changing every day. who I am and what I want to say is different today than it was 3 months ago, And so in my mind, I think the release path forward is just really regularly contributing to some larger image,
Well, it's been just crazy how the industry itself has changed because you used to get a record deal and then you'd spend a month or more and $100,000, whatever budget. And now it's like you said, you want to get it out when it's fresh, and it's.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the guy. I'm the guy who's kind of both. Like I write all the time, but I also have a Dropbox with 80 demos that have been there for. Some of them are 2 weeks old, and some of them are 3 years old.
Are they like phone recording?
Oh no, they're like. I mean, they're all the way. They're completely produced, like should have released them kind of things. Let me see. Like I need to get. It's things like. I'm feeling like this might be the beginning. I'm like, oh.
If that was me, I would release that like today.
I know, and that's like so. These are 5 tunes that are just like the last few months that are all like that. I'm going through, God damn it, and I'm playing drums and bass and guitar, and I'm producing and I'm mixing it out.
You're doing everything on those demos?
Yeah. And I'm you just sit and you bake, and you're cooking.
Well, we're talking like about releasing stuff to get it out, and you're sitting on like full albums.
I know. It's called being a hypocrite, Andy. It's called acting like you know what you're talking about. Have you ever heard the old phrase, this guy's full of shit?
Well,
because that's me.
Thank you for playing those snippets. It sounds great to me. Like,
thanks, man.
And so you're going through a current readjustment.
Yeah.
You're getting rid of the Holy Roller name and kind of from this point forward going as Mac Hanson. So is that going to create any issues down the road when you return to somewhere like Mile of Music and everybody's, looking for that name that they recognize?
I think probably there's going to be some lick of that. For me, the same reason that I made the band name what it was, and the reason I didn't play music is I didn't play music for the first 22 years of my life, or 20 years of my life, whatever. It's the same thing, and it's a little bit hiding. It's hiding from your true nature. Fear of misconception or preconceptions, or whether or not it's even a place that you should exist, whatever. For me, the band name was me didn't really realize it at the time, but was me trying to hide behind something so that it wasn't all me, and so that my name wasn't the thing that was predisposing people. And the reality is, while I've always been supported by wonderful bandmates who are dear homies and whom I love, and they will continue to play with me, I just had to change the name. I not only did I need to be able to make music that didn't sound like the band name Joshua and the Holy Rollers, I needed to be able to. I said the other day to that guy at Quad Cities, like, I need to be able to write a song about my son and it not feel like the non sequitur. I need to be able to let loose production wise away from something that sounds like Joshua and the Holy Rollers. That's at least for me, sounds like a big old riff rock band, right? Sounds like a Southern rock band. And that will always be true of the music that I write. But, or rather, like, that's a dimension of it. But I think I needed to fully own myself and own my own name, and in the end, while supported by all these guys, it was always me. All the songs, with a handful of exceptions, were co-writes. Almost everything is myself writing it alone and producing it with my brother Isaac helped me on the first record. But really me operating as producer for all this music too. So it was very singular, but I didn't want it to be, like, psychologically, and it took some time for me to embrace, like, it was me anyway, it was me anyway. So long story short, it might make a little ruffle, but I think anyone who cared about Joshua and the Holy Rollers knew that I was the leading force behind it, that it really was just a moniker for me. And I have faith that that will shine through. And the Holy Rollers, who knows? I mean, right now it's on ice, but I don't know that there isn't a time for the Holy Rollers as an entity to exist. Does that answer the question?
It
Or did
does.
I yet again
Did,
monologue and meander?
did you have any reservations about maybe changing it for mile 11?
Yeah,
The
actually,
wheels in motion and really not much you could do.
It's funny. I'm not a glasses inside guy.
I like how it looks.
I was speaking with Ian about the idea. I wasn't 100% on whether or not I was going to do it for this run. But there was that voice in your head that's like, homie, you're just delaying it again. You're putting it off like you're putting off releasing every one of those 80 demos, And so when it came down to me being on the road again, which we haven't done a proper cross-country run in a few years, I had to just make a gut decision. It was very last minute, but I think I couldn't do it again and care if I felt like I was still faking, if I felt like I was still hiding. And genuinely, I mean, personally, transparently, like, driving up to Salt Lake City, it's a wonderful venue, Garage on Beck. Highly recommend it. It's a great roadhouse. When the marquee read Mac Hanson, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that wanted to cry, because that's how deep it is. It's like, oh, right. I feel like everybody has to have this part of themselves somewhere in there. There's a kid that really wanted to be valued, by your parents, by your friends, by whatever. There's something in you that really feels like maybe I'm projecting, but let me know. Callers, let me know. Were you a hurt child? But I think everyone has something like that. And for me, seeing my own name attached to this thing that has become such a massive part of my identity, playing music has become such a significant part of who I am, almost indelibly tied now. That realizing in that moment when I see my name on the marquee, oh, you've been kind of disassociating a little bit in a way that I was already aware of that, but to see it tangibly in a physical place where someone else had to put the effort into making that name appear on a thing, I forget what the question is outside of, we all need to feel that harmony of identity, who you want to be, who you are, and that matching up with your physical reality. You know what I mean? Like I you need to be able to see yourself how you believe yourself to be seen. You know, does that make sense?
It does. And it's interesting because your last name itself was somehow not taken away from you, but you felt that it was
It was
not
attached.
yours.
It was, yeah. I
Right.
mean, it was attached. Not by any fault, right? But you do. For those of you that are unaware, my brothers are musicians, and their band name is Hanson, which is our last name. And yeah, I didn't really realize that would be dissonant for me until you're starting to make professional choices and presenting yourself in the world as an entertainer and realizing, oh, that's not wholly yours, right? But I think there's a lot of fucking Danish people in the world named Hanson, and that's mostly bullshit that I'm telling myself. Forgive the French, guys. It's a little early in the morning, sure. But if you haven't said fuck quietly to yourself as you're sitting at the gas station and you're just like, fuck this shit. God damn it. If you haven't said that this morning, I highly recommend just quietly humming to yourself a couple of expletives and seeing where it takes you. I'm really sorry if there are any kids in the car.
So, I mean, your brothers have been very supportive of you.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
growing up, was it rough for you because you're seeing them excel at something that you might have been a little too young to participate in at the time, and then it's something where you were kind of boxed out of for a while? Was that sort of a feeling?
Yeah. A very fair, valid question. Good question. I didn't know that I didn't know that I even had a singing voice until I was like 17, 18. You know, it just wasn't something that was examined for me because it was such trod earth. You know, that was a path that had already been walked. So I I didn't really feel anything but, I mean, definite pride in them. And the only part of me that felt excluded is the part of any younger sibling who wishes that they were with the older kids, you know. And I always wanted to be a performer. That's always been true, whether it was acting or just being an idiot, you know, doing Tommy Boy, grabbing my little sister's coat and fat guy and you know, for the roadies, you know, that's me as a child. Just fat guy in a little coat.
A Wisconsin connection there with Tommy Boy and Chris Farley.
Ah, Chris. God. What a
Genius.
genius, treasure, magnificent comedy icon. Honestly, yeah, one of my number one loves, you know, just, and also a magnificent heartbreak.
Yep.
I think about it. I genuinely think about Chris Farley regularly. And I think it's really the saddest part, if we're allowed to go there, the saddest part about Chris Farley, Belushi, those guys, to me, they didn't leave their life because they wanted out. They left their life because they didn't feel comfortable with themselves not being on, you know? Or I mean, I'm projecting maybe, or just taking that. My read of Farley was from what you can observe and from what you can ingest from documentaries and interviews and whatever else, both people talking about him and himself. He was a dude who really liked being on. And as a dude who personally likes being on, it's very uncomfortable to get cool with yourself with the version of you that isn't on. the lower energy guy who you have to be, because there are peaks and valleys. So Farley, Belushi, they're dudes who were doing stuff that kept them on. You know, you you're doing those drugs to stay sharp, stay funny, be fast, and feel like you're at your peak, even if you aren't. And that's the sad part. It's like, it's not that he wanted out, it's that he wanted to be the version of himself that everyone expected him to be, and that he felt the most comfortable with, or felt that was the most valuable, right? And I'm projecting a lot, but
Well, do you find it hard to get that energy before each show? Because if you've seen you perform before, you expect that energy. And again, people I talked to yesterday were raving about, the last time you were here for Mile, and just
Yeah.
the energy that you were putting out.
I mean, it's definitely a thing that you kind of like, you got to mount up for. There are definitely shows where you don't have as much, or your head's not in it, and you kind of have to build rituals. There's always this funny like musician debriefing after every show where you're like, what went right, what went poorly, what would you change, who fucked up when, you missed that. That's not really how we operate, but everyone's kind of like, hey, sorry, I missed the bridge, So you got to self-identify. But yeah, I mean, you have to build rituals to get that much energy. And the thing is, like, in my mind, performance is an act of giving, right? And not an act of taking. I think some performers do take, like they want something out of it. I want something out of it, but the thing that I want is for you to have a good time. The thing that I want is for you to enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying it, because I love it. I just love performing. I love playing, and I love dripping with sweat and feeling. I mean, it really is a bacchanal, narcissistic drive thing of me just wanting to be God. I want to be, wearing a grape crown and sitting on a chaise lounge being fanned. But that, my version of that is having a blast on stage, So it is hard to mount up for that much energy. But, and all of you guys who have ever performed know this, if you get up and you're giving it, you will get it back, And I think that's really true across everything. If you walk into an environment, whether it's work, whether it's parenthood, whether it's literally any situation in your life, if you walk in and give energy, you will receive it back, because people see something that they want. Like, they want to feel good too. If they can see that you're enjoying it, they will enjoy it, and that will just be the exchange, because I walk off of stage, even when I was exhausted going in, I come off energized, because it just shakes you up, and it feels like pulling in, and everyone has a different experience. I'm a very extroverted person, so of course I love this. Some people are performers and they love the act of writing, and stepping up and getting on stage is more of an association of anxiety, or it's harder. That's their path.
Having a child, does that make going out and doing these runs of shows a little more tough?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of why I didn't tour much in between 2020 until now. My son's about to be 4 at the end of September. And any of you who have kids know those first few years are there's a lot of change, and you want to be there, and I as a person wasn't really prepared. Are we ever? But I had to go through a lot of change, and we had to make different choices, and I had to, gratefully, for my personal growth, needed to step up and be the provider, be stable, for my wife and my son. And that made it more challenging. It's part of why stuff hasn't been released. It's part of why I haven't played. It's part of why a lot. But now that Elliot is able to conceptualize and understand this thing a little bit more, life's a little bit easier with him at his age. It's starting to feel more possible in a way that it hasn't for the last few years.
Being into film, I'm sure Elliot's going to have thousands of hours of stuff to watch when he gets older.
That's a highly documented child, But that's also, it's an interesting thing about just sort of this generation of children. I mean, I've got like a couple photos of me as a little baby, maybe some as a toddler, maybe a couple in the fat years, 13 to last week. But meanwhile, I've got an image of him every day for his entire life. That is probably goes against like human nature, but we'll deal with that later. Yeah. Highly documented kid. And whatever he decides to do will continue to be highly documented by me. Son, you can take that as a bet. If you're looking at this years hence, I knew now I was going to be the dad filming everything.
Joshua and the Holy Rollers, lots of videos.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you took part in most of those as far as editing or coming up conceptually with the ideas.
Yeah.
I know that Our Friends, which was one of my favorites, you're walking around with a dummy, which continually had the face changed on it, was one that was directed, I believe, by you and produced and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, is that part of the fun about being in a band and writing songs, is that you're able to make videos?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And your faces, by the way, in that video are hilarious. You're the best at like making crazy faces.
That's mostly because me being normal is actually just a facade. I'm fucking crazy, man. No. Yes. Honestly, like the very early thought of ever doing music was like, oh, kill all the birds with one stone. Like I can make the music and I can direct the video and I can edit it. And so it's all in my reel, multi hyphenate threat, So that was a big part of it. And it's a really wonderful creative expression to be able to do. Our Friends, for instance, is a tune written when my wife is pregnant in the middle of COVID and we're not seeing anybody, especially those early couple months, especially in California. But the ability to then fictionalize it and make it so nonsense. If you guys haven't watched it, it's me going insane alone, and I make a dummy out of stockings and a pillow. Okay. And they and I, we get very personal. Nothing graphic, but
there's things that are kind of insinuated.
Oh, there's lots of implications. There's a bottle of wine in hand, and I think we can all place ourselves there a little bit. Like, I don't know. That pillow looks nice. God, what am I saying? What am I saying into a microphone?
It's a great entertaining video. People should check it out.
Yeah.
Talks Like Alabama was the first video I remember seeing of yours.
Yeah.
And was that real alcohol in those bottles?
If it was real alcohol, we all would have died.
Okay.
And also the bassist, If you haven't seen it, Talks Like Alabama is a car stranded in the desert, and we just decide to break out bottles of whiskey and go full Wayne's World. The our bassist at the time, our friend Al Moore, is sober, so we wouldn't have even had the option. It was kind of fun. I mean, they were real whiskey bottles, but they were the empties from the party the night before or whatever. And Al almost had a problem with the fact that there was the scent of whiskey on it because it was kind of convincing a little bit. The nose mind thing. No, it's some sweet tea. Let's be honest. We had to be able to refill. You know what I mean? I'd love to be the rock and roll guy who's like, yeah, that was all 151, and to say that I somehow survived the consumption of an entire handle of whiskey without vomiting or losing my composure.
What word did you rhyme with Alabama in that song? I don't remember the word, but I just remember thinking it was genius because trying to think of something to rhyme with Alabama is not easy.
It's funny. The engineer, Omar Yakar, will occasionally give me shit about this because, yes, I do rhyme Alabama with jambalaya. Okay. I understand they're different words. I understand that they don't actually rhyme. Okay. They're what I call a slant rhyme. And that is the most slanty of the rhymes because it requires you to really pronounce those words a particular way. But
it ends up being catchy though, like subliminally, because it's like, what was that?
Yeah. It's definitely a mixed bag for sure.
So I see what's Eternity Speedway?
Oh,
I saw that like you were going to continue to play with them. I don't know what that.
Yeah. Eternity Speedway is a project that started up, originally was a joke about a year ago with my buddy Ash Irwin and Jordan Greenwald, who were both in different acts out in LA. And it started off just like, hey, our friend is producing Billy Gibbons' record. We should probably see if we could get a song to him, So we said, oh, let's write some ZZ Top, let's become Sharp Dressed Men. But started off as a gag, and then a few months back, Ash and I were grabbing a drink with Logan Bodiana, and we were saying it'd be nice to stay sharp. So Eternity Speedway right now is an LA rock and roll supergroup filled only with the most friendly lead singers you can find. No egos except for all of them. And we play some rock and roll just to stay sharp in LA. And I can't speak to the future of it outside of we'll continue to have fun. And I think there's stuff coming down the pipe, but I'm not going to say anything more about that.
This is so painful. Like we have to wait for all the stuff on your phone. We have to wait for the Eternity Speedway information.
Listen, man, I am nothing if not withholding. Don't remind my wife. Pardon.
So Mile of Music.
Yes.
We've got a couple days to catch your set.
Yeah.
We've got a comment I missed from Rachel. She said she's really excited to catch you tonight.
Yeah, Rachel.
B.I. Ricky or Rissy?
Richie?
R-I-C-C-I.
I'm going to call that Richie.
I like it. We'll go with it.
Yeah. You know what? Can't wait to see you guys. Honestly, I'm pumped that we're going to get cranking, Yeah, so it's about time I get sweaty,
And I've got the list again here tonight. Jones Park 940. That's going to be a huge show.
Be slammer.
Spats tomorrow 5:25, and they always take care of their artists.
Yeah, and Spats is a blast.
And then you have the Lawrence Lawn main stage, another big one tomorrow night. So no excuse not to. There's got to be some time that fits in there.
Yeah, there's got to be. Get out to the shows, guys.
Mac, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this, and I look forward to what you have coming that you teased us with today.
Yeah.
And please, if you're in Appleton, please stop by again.
Will do. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Andy.